name's Spencer and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well, and let's just jump right into this video. Today I'm going to be setting up my new project planner and also announcing a new project that will hopefully be a series on my channel. This is actually a new system for me. I've combined a bunch of different planning methods to come up with something that I think and hope will work for me. It's basically a way for me to keep everything project related together instead of spread out in my workspace across different sketchbooks, notebooks, and just sticky notes stuck to the wall and bookcases. First off, I'm just making a really simple quote page and using this very simple, how many times am I going to say simple in this, typewriter style font to write it. The quote is, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." I can't remember where I heard this quote originally, but after I googled it, it's apparently said by good old Honest Abe, so I learned something new whilst writing this script. The first actual spread for this planner is my index pages. I didn't do this in my 2021 bullet journal setup, as I don't usually feel the need for it in a straight up bullet journal, but I thought it would be really helpful for navigating this one as it's going to contain many different projects. I used a double page spread for this, and then I split each page in half again to give myself the most amount of space possible. The next page is my project master list page. Before I sat down to film this, I actually made a master list on a separate piece of paper and just wrote down every project that's currently rattling around in my brain at the moment. So some have been started, some have been researched but not properly started, and some haven't been started at all. They are just little shiny ideas in my brain that keep distracting me from what I should be working on. So after I wrote all of those out on that scrap piece of paper, I went through and categorised them all into the different types that they are. And you can see me writing these at the top of the page here. So they are in sewing, writing, or miscellaneous. And then I went through each of those lists and put a star next to all of the ones that have been started but not finished. So basically all of my work in progress ones. And then these ones are the ones that I wrote down on the official project master list in the project planner. I am covering up some of the ideas here because some of them are either for potentially paid jobs or are currently out on submission. So those are just, they're under the sticky note. See, there is quite a lot on this list, but we are going to be working through it, and I will try to keep you guys updated, probably over on my Instagram, about how each project is going. So if you want to follow me there, you'll get more frequent updates, because I'm trying to post more frequently on there, but some of these will be documented on the channel as well. If you guys watch my February bullet journal setup, you will know that I am obsessed with using stickers at the moment, so I decorated this page with a few. One of them just says "Make it happen." Some of them are just these little arrow ones, and then I also put a flower sticker down at the bottom because it's just so cute. And then I went back and added some to the index page as well because I decided it needed a little more jazzing up. The next page is my Kanban board. Now, a lot of people set these up on whiteboards or like sort of large areas somewhere outside of a notebook so they can keep track of it all the time. I decided to put it in my notebook because I actually needed something that would limit the amount of space that I had to work with. Because as you can see, I have a lot of projects currently either on the go or on the back burner, and if I have a massive whiteboard that I can write them all on, I will never get anything done because I will get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things, or I will just keep adding because there's just literally space to add things. I decided to put it in this planner so it would limit the space and therefore limit what I could work. So a Kanban board is essentially a way to organise your progress with a project, and they're really customisable. So I took what a basic Kanban board looks like, I will put some examples here, and I customised it to suit my needs more. So along the top I will have the headings project, to do, doing, help and done. So these are essentially a box to put the project title in, the next thing that I have to do, the next thing that's coming up in like the instructions on the pattern, or the next stage in editing, something like that. The next column is for doing, so that's something that I am working on at the moment. So I can basically see what I am currently working on and what is coming up so that I can prepare for that if needs be. The next column, help, is essentially for when I get stuck on something. So if there's a technique in a sewing pattern that I don't understand, or if I really need to talk to a beta reader about a section of the novel that I'm stuck on and not sure how to fix, that will then go into help. And then as I work on it or fix it, it can go back into doing, and then when it's done, it goes into the final column. I like having this final done column because I like having a record of the things that I've completed, because getting that serotonin boost wherever I can, and having things in the done column, makes me feel so good. So basically this Kanban board gives me space for 3 projects at a time: a priority project, a coming up project, and a future project. That stops me from just adding more and more and more things onto the list, but does allow me to jump between projects because I need a couple of things to juggle at a time to keep me interested, whilst limiting what those things can do. So this is hopefully going to help me whittle down my WIP pile and increase my done pile, as I will literally not have space to add more projects onto this board. So obviously this method is usually used on a whiteboard so you can rub things off but reuse the main mesh. Obviously you can't do that on a paper book, so I've decided to use sticky notes that I will just move across the board because I have a lot of sticky notes and I am no longer using them all in textbooks for university. So we gotta find a use for them, and this is gonna be it. I added some cute pink washi tape to this page to create a border, and I did fold it back on the sides so the pages before and after it would also have a cute border, but along the top and the bottom I actually cut these off. But don't worry, nothing went to waste. These pink giraffes now actually cover the spine of this journal, so they have a good home. And again, all of the coloured pens used throughout this, and pretty much everything I will be using in the near future, are my dual tip brush pens from the Hobbycraft Rainbow collection. I love these pens, they are so good, and being able to have them in both the brush tip and the fineliner is just beautiful. And again, this page is also decorated using some stickers from that Carpe Diem sticker book that I have. I actually used these stickers to create the headings, so some of them literally said what I needed them to, like to do, or on the list, or nope, that's it, those are the only ones. But the other ones kind of create like a label or a header sticker, so I used those and just wrote the customized things I needed on them, and the done column is just full of positive reinforcement things. And I used more of these label type stickers down the side for priority, coming up and future. then I basically just decorated the page with stickers that made me smile and went with the aesthetic. So I'm really liking these ones with the phrases on them actually. They look really nice with a coloured background. So the next spread is the first of my project pages, and the project that I'm going to be using as an example to show you how to set this up, but it is also the project that I am currently working on and that has an extremely tight deadline. This project is my dragonskin dress. This dress is basically being designed and made as an entry to the Foundations Revealed competition for this year, in which the theme is Once Upon a Time. The description on the website says, curl up with a book and tumble down the rabbit hole into the realm of the storyteller. Talking lions, evil fairies, dashing pirates, and haughty dowagers are waiting for their enchanted dancing slippers, or recoiling at petticoats 3 inches deep in mud. So what will your favourite character wear? The character that I decided to go for is a little bit out there, I suppose, but it is the character Shardass from the book Dragonskin Slippers. This was one of my favourite books as a kid. Like, literally I read this over so many times, and I think a lot of my love of sewing came from this book as well. So yeah, I won't spoiler the book, but that is the character that I've gone for. And Shardass is a big golden dragon. So the way that I'm planning this particular project is using a method that I cannot remember the name of right now. I will put it up on screen here so that you guys can see it, because future AJ will probably know it, but I don't. But basically it means splitting the project into several categories in order to work out how to progress. So the first part is the purpose, then there's the outcome vision, then the brainstorm, and the action steps. So some of these are on the same page, others are on different pages. I will talk about each of these as we go through and as I fill them out to show you how to use this method. You may be wondering why I've put the brainstorm in between pages rather than the first thing. This is because I like my pages to be aesthetically pleasing and very clear and easy for me to decipher, like get the information out straight away. Whereas this spread here, the brainstorm and organising spread, it's kind of a brain dump of information, ideas, goals, anything like that. So from these pages I will decipher the information that I really do definitely need, and then I can just paperclip these pages or washi tape them together so that they are not seen later on, and I can just flip between the very important pages, which will be the sketch and the action steps. I also added a couple of extra pages just for me because I thought they would be helpful, and these are my review pages and before my next project. So it's a space to write about what I've learned, what went well, what didn't go well, and what I need to remember for the next project. So starting with the brainstorm, I wrote out a couple of key things, such as the ideal outcome, and here you can see me writing out finished. Now this might seem really simple or really silly, but I have a habit of starting things and not finishing them. So the goal of this dress is to be finished. That is the ideal outcome. I then jotted down some other notes about how I wanted the completed garment to look. So this included things such as golden, invoked the idea of a dragon, in particular Shardass. I wanted it to be long sleeved, full length, and have scale details. I also put in the deadline, which is February the 3rd, 2021. Ideally, I wanted it done before then, but we shall see how that goes. And then I wrote out things such as the minimum it should do and the maximum it could do. So for the minimum, I said that it should give the impression of the character Stardust and it should look moderately historical. The maximum I thought it could do would be to tell the story of the character, i.e. that he is a grand and royal character. I also wanted the garment to look recognisably historical. I then also wrote down the things that I thought would be the biggest challenges whilst making this dress. I had already read through the pattern instructions to pick out what I thought might be difficult in the actual sewing of it, and I had come up with a few little solutions that I could do to make things easier or more enjoyable to do. So for example, some of the challenges were overcasting by hand, which is what was specified in the pattern instructions. But I knew that I would not be able to overcast all of these seams by hand. One, because of time, I just wouldn't have time to do it before the deadline. And two, I suffer from a chronic pain condition, which affects my hands a lot of the time. So sitting there and hand sewing isn't always the most doable thing for me. And I thought I could remedy this by using a machine finishing technique, such as a zigzag stitch. I also wrote down that smocking was going to be a challenge, as this is a new skill. I have been practicing this smocking technique for quite a while, but doing it on an actual garment and working out the reduction that it has, so how much the fabric shrinks when you smock it compared to when you gather it or pleat it, for example, there was going to be a hell of a lot more smocking than what I have practiced already. So I have been practicing on like squares that were 10 by 10 centimeters or 20 by 20 centimeters. I hadn't been practicing on anything that was shaped or bigger than that. I also put down that piping could be a challenge, because whilst I have made piping before, back when I made soft furnishings in high school, I could remember how to do it, but it is quite fiddly and can be quite time consuming. I also worked out it's probably been like 10 years since I did piping. The last challenge that I wrote down was pattern adjustment. So I knew that the smocking would affect the shape of the final pattern piece, so I knew I needed to practice and probably do some maths to work out how I would need to adjust those pattern pieces so that the final would match if I had done it in the way the instructions had told me to. I also knew that I would need to make some adjustment in the more basic sense of this dress because I have a 30-inch waist, but I do not have the equivalent standard that the pattern says I should have for my bust and hip. So I would need to make sure that the waist fit, but then reduce the size of the pattern around my bust and hips. I also put down a little list of what was left to do or to buy before starting this project. And on this are things such as shifts and undergarments, which shortly after writing this list out, decided that actually I have a t-shirt that I can wear under the corset that I made that actually looks very similar to the top of a shift, so I've decided to just use that. The other things on the list are a corset, which needs finishing, a petticoat, which I have ordered. I knew I had to order cording and twill tape, the actual fabric, boning, buttons, hooks and eyes, and I would need to make the mock-up and then make the real dress. I did check my stash and I do have some of these things, so things like the boning and the hooks and eyes I already own, but I do need to pick up other little bits to make up what I don't have. So after brainstorming all of these ideas, I then went on to the next page of this spread, which is for organisation and categorisation. I categorised everything into must, want and nice. This idea actually comes from one of the Foundations Revealed mentors, who said that when starting a project, it's good to figure out what the project must have, what you want the project to have, and what would be nice to have on the project. So I took all of that information from my brainstorm and categorised it. So the things in my must list are that it must give the impression of the character Stardust, that it must be long sleeved with a full length skirt, and there must be dragon scale smocking, and that it must be completed by February 3rd, 2021 if I want to enter it into the Foundations Field competition. Other musts that I decided on was a petticoat, because to get the silhouette of the dress, I would need a petticoat to push out the skirt. I needed to do a mock-up beforehand because I needed to know how to adjust the pattern pieces. I would need fabric, I would need twill tape, I would need to make the dress, and I would need hooks and eyes, buttons and bonings. On my want list, I had things like looking moderately historical, telling the story of Shardass, not just representing the character, piping, and to make a corset. So with making a corset came with things such as the grommets and the cording and things like that. I did put next to fabric that I want the fabric to be a silk satin, but obviously cost comes into it there, and whether I can get the right type, where I can get it from, things like that. So that is why the silk is only in the want colour, not in the need colour. Then the nice category, there's only a few things in this, such as looking recognisably historical. Because this competition isn't specifically for historical garments, it doesn't necessarily need to be instantly recognisable as a particular time period. So that's why that's in nice, as is overcasting by hand, because that is something that you can do by machine instead. So by hand is just an extra little thing to do. And I also put the shift and undergarments into the nice list because there are other things I can wear underneath that are modern, just schmoozed into historical, rather than actually making a shift and a corset and a petticoat and all the other bits myself, because I am on one hell of a time crunch. So after figuring all of this out, I went back to the title page, if you will, of the project, or the overview of the project, and I wrote out what the purpose of the project would be. And for this, I said that the purpose is to improve my dressmaking skills and create something to fit me, to practice making a design specifically for me, and to level up my sewing skills and experiment with new techniques, for example seams and tailoring, adjusting a commercial pattern, things like that, and to experiment more with costuming. I then wrote the outcome vision, which is basically a written description of what I want the final project to look like, and this is just to help really finalize it in my head before doing the sketch. So it's a quick list of all the little things that I want there to be. So I wrote down that it would be a fitted, lined, boned, bias front bodice, which is overlapped by a pleated drape. A pleated drape is the words from the pattern. I am planning on smocking these parts of the dress instead of pleating it, so I wrote to be replaced by dragon scale smocking. There would be side back seams, a waistband covered with scales, a gathered skirt with dragon scale smocking, side front and side back seams, no side seams, 3-piece lined smock sleeves, buttons and button loops, piping and binding. The majority of this description actually came from the written description on the back of the pattern that I am using, which is Butterick B5832, which you can see here, and I'm having this pattern close to hand whilst I do the sketch for my dress. So I started with a rough body form, and then I just drew on the main shapes that I could see on the photograph on the pattern. So this is things like the draped bodice, the shape of the sleeves, the waistband, things like that, and working out roughly what the length of the skirt would be and where the facing would form. I then added in the details of where I wanted the smocking by drawing little scales. And let me tell you, drawing all of those little scales is really time taking. No, what's it called? It takes a long time to draw them, okay? It takes a long time to draw them. And then once I had finished that, I went back in and used a gold coloured pen to just make it show up a little bit more and show the colour that I wanted to use. Then I went on to my action steps. So I basically wrote out all of the different things that would need to be done to finish this project. So I'm just writing a few out here to show you. Some of these include things like making the piping, the bodice lining, both left and right sides, the bodice front, and things like putting the boning in, the waistband, sleeves, skirts, things like that. And then they're all broken down into smaller chunks. I didn't write out absolutely everything I needed to do because obviously I'm using a pattern for this, so I'm mostly following that, and I didn't feel the need to write down everything. But for another project, I will probably make a much more detailed action step plan. So then I copied these onto sticky notes. These little apple ones actually came in my paper gang book in January, and I love them. They are so cute, and they kind of match the colour scheme that I'm going for this project, so I thought they were perfect. I'm copying over the more heading type things, such as waistband, bodice front, that sort of thing. So the main part, not the broken down steps. I'm putting those onto sticky notes, and those will be what I move around on my Kanban board, which I showed you earlier. So here you go, here's the final flip through. That's my cover page. I decided to colour them in and I thought it looked cute, so I thought I would show you guys. We have my quote page, my index page, my project master list page, my Kanban board. I'll pull those sticky notes up so you can see just the board, and then with the example of the project title and the next step. The project overview page with the description and the sketch. My messier pages, which can be sandwiched in the middle, which are my brainstorm page and my organisation and categorisation page, my action step page, and then my review and before my next project pages. So there we go guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope this is helpful. And let me know what projects you're working on at the moment and how you stay on task and stay organised. I've totally forgotten what my outro is. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a like, and if you're new here and fancy sticking around, hit that subscribe button so we can hang out some more. I'm trying to upload more regularly, and my upload day is a Friday, so keep checking back. There will hopefully be more frequent videos. See you guys! Bye!